So let's get started. Here with me is Drue Mitchell, and many of y'all know, Drue from, of course, the Afternoon Drive on Power FM, and starting this whole kind of podcast series of having, a little bit of time with each and every person that was involved. I find myself, the further I'm getting away from the actual time it occurred, I'm having a hard time remembering like dates and times and things and whatnot. So being able to get to talk to you, hopefully it's more, since you were living it and I was juggling so many other things in my head, kind of exactly when you started with Power FM. So we'll get to that when that time comes. But what I want to start with is all of us are born at a very early age. And I want to kind of get to know, Drue, where did you spawn? Where were you from? You're from the Metroplex originally, right?
No, my parents, they're both from Oregon, and they met at Oregon State.
Oh, okay.
And so they graduated and got married, and then they moved to San Francisco to start their careers, and they kind of moved around a little bit. In fact, I don't know the exact timeline, but they went to Phoenix. They went to outside San Francisco, and they were in Los Angeles and Long Beach. And then they went back to San Francisco. And when they went back to San Francisco is when I was born. I was born at Stanford Hospital, so kind of outside, like San Jose.
Okay.
Kind of area.
And you got brothers, right? So what birth order are you?
And then I'm the oldest.
Okay.
And so my dad is a car dealer, or was back then, and he got his first store, his first management position. It was in Phoenix, and so they moved back to Phoenix, and both my brothers were born there. And then in 1977, he got his store at Marsh and Forest Lane, which was the cruise strip, if you remember that, in Dallas. So that's where his store was when we moved there in November of 77. So I was about 3.
Oh, wow.
We moved to Dallas.
Okay. And so what year were you born?
74.
74. Okay. So he works his way up.
Right.
He's pretty much kind of starts out as probably in car sales and becomes a manager, and then
I think he never sold. He just was a manager, and then became a general sales manager, and then became a dealer. So,
wow.
He worked for Ford as a corporate guy.
Okay.
And it's a funny story how he tells it too. He's like, I would call on dealerships, and these general managers and general sales managers in the towers were telling me, how much they make and showing me their demos. And he was like, man, I'm in the wrong end of this. So that's how he became a car dealer.
Okay.
And
that gets you to the Metroplex then by that time. Your formative years, or you basically grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area then, even though you might not have been born there, but you pretty much North Texas or in Dallas was your home base.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so going from that, obviously you developed some sort of a passion for music and then radio. And of course, radio for us, growing up was such a big deal.
Right.
And your kind of your identity sort of develops based on the style of music that you fall in love with. And obviously from the time that you were growing up, the big stations were like Q102 and the Zoo on the rock side. And
those were the two big ones for me.
Okay. Right.
So, yeah. I remember, seeing the Zoo logo and just thinking like, oh, that's so cool. I mean, even as a small kid, and, I remember Steve Miller Band and ZZ Top and, some of those, the Eagles and stuff that they would play. And then Q102 as I got older, was the main one. So, and KZ and Zoo had signed off. So,
Yeah, eventually, I guess it was, I was working at the Zoo and KOLD. I did mornings on the AM side on 57. And then I could look through and see Bruce and Scott through the window that were the morning team on the Zoo at that time. And then the Zoo didn't last much longer past, it was like 88 or so. But that if I'm 88 or 89, that they pretty much stopped, and then Q102 pretty much had the whole thing. And then by that time, new rock and classic rock, the classic rock format sort of has its own identity, and they have a kind of a cutoff. They're going to go back so far. And so KZPS becomes more of the old stuff, and Q102 still is your typical kind of middle of the road, some old, some, and still introducing new stuff, into the 90s. Then eventually, you grow up listening, to that frequency, and then you actually get to work on that frequency, right?
Yeah.
Did you work at 94.5 The Edge, or you got to work at 102.1 The Edge?
No, it was 102.1 by the time I had gotten there. Yeah. So, but the first thing about radio and kind of, being out here in California and stuff that really was huge was my dad, he had a boat and he put it in Marina del Rey. He would come out here to race his speedboat across the South Bay, and we would come out with him, and his dad lived in West LA, so we would see his dad and go ride the boat. And I would bring a brick of blank tapes with me, and I would record KNAC.
Okay, yeah.
And so I would literally just put a tape in, hit just unscoped, record, until it clicked off, and then flip it over and do it again. And then I would take all those tapes back with me because we lived in North Dallas, but I went to school kind of down off Inwood and Lover's Lane. So it was about, I don't know, like a 25, 30-minute, school bus ride to school. And I would sit there with my Walkman and listen to KNAC over those tapes over and over and over and over again, and learn all the bands and learn all the places in California and the DJs on that station and the new music that they were playing, because it was a little bit harder than Q102,
Right.
So, and I was starting to become more attracted to that type of music anyway. So,
is that when you kind of, the thing, it kind of was birthed in you that I want to do that too? Been watching some documentaries of some radio stations like the Z100, or there was another one that they're always a young kid, and they're seeing their, a DJ, like, at some stations used to be able, the DJ would be behind a window and you could walk past the front of the station and see them doing their job. And this one, guy said, well, I was just a kid just looking at there going, that's what I want to do. And so is that around the time when you said, you're listening to these DJs and you're going, this is what I want to do?
I mean, I wanted to be just like, the thing that I always liked about Q102 and KNAC and everything is that, they were always like there on the scene, or, back in the day, they would like report, if, Styx was playing at Reunion Arena, they would be there and you could hear the ambience like behind the microphone and stuff like that. And I just thought that was so cool. I did too.
Same here.
I wanted to just be there. And I want to say, like, I don't know if this is like, they would replay the concert. Like they
would.
A guy there that would write down all the songs.
They did it in order. As you were leaving, I'm going to see Van Halen, going to see Van Halen at Reunion. And, you can actually look up, like a broadcast booth, and you see, the banner, like the Q102 banner, and, or the zoo there, but they'd both be there actually. And as you're driving, and we came all the way from Oklahoma. So we listened to the entire concert in order. They played all the cuts the entire way home. It's like you get to relive, the whole thing all over again. And so we did that. We did that, as a matter of fact, on KVTT on on Power Mix, and it was for Newsboys, or no, it was for Audio Adrenaline. And so I was there at the Bronco Bowl, and Matt was back in master control. And so he would just, send it out to me, and then I would just do all the drops and do the show just like I would always do. You're exactly right. You heard the concert ambience, and I'm having to yell over the top, of what's going on, and it just gives you that almost like you're covering a major news event, and it was exciting. Right. That's why I stole that, from them.
So not to get out of order, but when I first started listening to Power FM, like really hardcore, like trying to learn the bands and like really, getting into the music, I had was a new Christian, and gosh, it was probably like a fall time or something, but it was when Lift had just come out by Audio Adrenaline, and it was probably you interviewing them on Power FM, and it was just pure chaos, like on the interview, like they were all there talking all over each other, and like you were trying to, corral cats, getting these guys on the air. That's kind of how it was. Yeah, and it was just like super fun, and I remember like I went and got Lift and listened to that record, and like that would be my first Audio Adrenaline album, and it's definitely something that was played on Power FM, and but that red CD cover and that album, and again another thing, I don't want to get out of order, but you and I saw Mercy Me at Six Flags, and we were watching them, and they covered a deep cut off of that album. Do you remember that?
Oh gosh, no. See, that's why I'm glad we're doing this sort of thing, because I have suppressed or just there's not enough RAM in my head. I only have about 8 gig of RAM. I don't, or maybe even less.
Well,
maybe I just have 4.
I Tremble, and they just like Mercy Me just like did it so well, and you and I were like, these guys are so good. Like we were just blown away. Like you and I were high fiving while we were watching Mercy Me. Because I always felt like they rock a little harder live.
Yes, they do.
They do on their records.
They do, for sure.